Hello and welcome back. My name is Mark Williams, and joining me today is Fergus Horsfall, editor of Citywire for Germany and Switzerland. Fergus, hello.
Thank you. I should just say I am only the editor for Switzerland. We have my colleague who does a wonderful job is the editor for Germany. I don't want to steal their title, but hello very much.
However, you do speak German fluently, don't you? And you're based in Munich.
I speak German. I have to say, I don't think my German is as beautiful as some of my colleagues who have slightly more dulcet tones in German than mine. Let's put it that way. But I attempt to speak German. We can put it that way.
Now, I was on the Citywire website this morning checking up on you and clicking on your name, and I realized that when we click on your name, there's no resume for you. I thought it would be fun to do this interview, to talk to you about yourself, about Citywire, and your job as editor of Citywire for Switzerland. Now, going through your profile on LinkedIn, it's very clear that journalism was the objective from the get-go. There's certainly everything is about journalism from the start. But what brought you to financial journalism?
Well, it's funny because I guess how early do you define get-go? I mean, I think I definitely wanted to be a journalist from around when I started trying to scrabble for work experience. But I wouldn't say when I was 18. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be a journalist. But so then I did do a master's degree in journalism. And as you saw, I mean, I didn't do that much to do with finance journalism at that point. I did more political journalism. I did some features and the like. And finance, in all honesty, I applied because I thought it sounded interesting. I didn't have a lot of a financial background, so to say, but I thought the job title sounded interesting, and I thought, you know what, why not give it a go? Yeah, I guess that's not as many fireworks as it could have been. Unfortunately, I didn't see some gigantic fraud unfolding on television and then think I have to be in the thick of that.
One of the interesting facts I found as part of my research into Citywire, on Wikipedia it says that Citywire publishes 27,000 articles per year. I wondered how many you and your team write for Citywire every year.
So for the Swiss website, we have approximately 4 articles per day going out. We have a morning newsletter that goes out pretty much every working day of the year. We also can use the articles sometimes written by my colleagues, and we've got various other locations around the world. So they also sometimes have some great interviews, etc., that we can also hop onto.
Would you say you choose your articles from the ebbs and flows in the financial markets, or is it really dictated by what's happening within the financial industry?
And what is in the investment markets versus like company developments?
Yes.
It's a bit of both, I think I find that a lot of what people like to read about is comings and goings, mergers, acquisitions, etc. in the companies. So things like if an asset manager hires a new CEO, that kind of thing, they're consistently quite interested in. But we do also write about financial market developments. I don't personally write a lot about, say, single stock news in that sense. We have got quite an interesting single stock coverage offering called the Citywire Elite Companies database, which we have the editor of that in London called Algie Hall. As he's a great journalist. He used to be at the Investors Chronicle, and they have this database which ranks by conviction which stocks the best fund managers in the world are buying, and they write a lot about that. So that's good. But from my side, if we're writing about investments, it tends to be maybe a bit more with a focus on asset allocation and the sort of key building blocks, I guess, of the decisions that the people running the investment teams at wealth management companies would have to be thinking about on a day-to-day basis. We do also sometimes interview fund managers and write about which investment funds are hot, etc.
Are there any subjects you're writing about or you're working on currently that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I guess maybe because it's quite topical. We've got a Swiss equities focused digital magazine that's coming out quite soon. We have, what else are we working on at the moment? We've got the second edition of our private banking awards, which we had the first one for Switzerland last year, and that's quite a big project for us. I mean, in terms of which other topics we've written about recently, let me think. I mean, I guess today I could say what I wrote about today. So we had a story that just came out a few hours ago about an organization called UBP, which is a private bank and asset manager headquartered in Switzerland, and they have just outsourced their private debt team to sort of I guess, boutique investment manager, which is a specialist. And that was a story we had today that was reasonably well received, and that was exclusive, so that was nice for us. Yeah, I mean, I think also you have general themes of the industry, right, which develop over time. So then maybe leading on from that, one theme over the last few years is you see a lot of the big alternative investment asset managers are really trying to push into the wealth management space a lot, and they're trying to sell their funds not only to big pension funds, but also a lot to wealth management companies and financial advisors. So I think that is one of the longer term themes of the companies that we're writing about.
In an industry that's largely devoid of direct advertising, how do you see the role of media within the financial industry, such as yourselves?
I mean, I think it's a good question, and I'm just going to ruminate slightly.
Ruminate away.
Yes, I think what's the role of the media in the financial industry? The thing is as well, finance means a lot of different subcategories, right? So I guess in terms of what we write about, there's perhaps what the financial companies might want from the industry, and then there's maybe what the readers might want, and often they're aligned, but they're not always exactly the same. So I think for the companies that we write about, one of the things that we write about sometimes is investment funds. And for these people, we are a great way to get your product in front of the face of the people whose job is picking investment funds for the likes of big banks. So Citywire, we also run a lot of events, and we have a lot of the people in charge of selecting funds who come to our events. And a lot of them are also reading our publications. And so that's a good chance for them to read about these investment products that they might want to buy, but it's also a good chance to try to get the funds purchased if you're considering giving an interview to us. I think also, we have a lot of readers within the financial industry, for me personally, within Switzerland, but also Citywire more broadly and all the other markets we're in. And it's a good opportunity, I think, to make a name for yourself for hiring as well. And also, we're a reasonably large media brand, and to have a chance to, if you're being interviewed by somebody who's got a known media brand and you get a chance to say what you think is some smart insight, then maybe you get to try and position yourself as a bit of a thought leader as well. I think there's an element as well for specific roles like the chief investment officer, the chief economist. It's important to the companies when they're picking these people a lot of the time that they think they are people who will be good at being interviewed, who will be good at going out and giving speeches. And in addition to understanding, obviously, what their economic views are and how they're formulating them, they want them to be able to explain them really well and market the brand to an extent.
Judging by the number of events that Citywire organises every year, there's an event organised by Citywire every few days in the world somewhere. How many of those do you attend?
I personally go to, not an exact number, but maybe about 6 or 7 a year. I generally go to a lot of our ones in Switzerland, as I'm largely only writing about Switzerland. I don't go to many outside of Switzerland. But as you say, yeah, we have a lot of events. And I was actually at our Lucerne event last week, which was specifically for independent wealth managers and for family offices. So that was a good chance to catch up with a lot of people. We had an interesting panel with some of the investment heads talking about some of the top themes of the market at the moment, like whether they think US equity exceptionalism is over, talking about what they think the role is of relationship managers in deciding what should be in the client's investment portfolio, how they're incorporating artificial intelligence into their processes, etc.
Coming to Dubai has emerged as a very strong financial competitor to quite a few countries, and maybe even Switzerland. Are any of your clients talking about the emergence of Dubai and the competition from Dubai to Switzerland, for instance?
So it's funny that you mention that, because before I was at our event in Lucerne last week, I was going to see some of the banks in Geneva. And I won't say which one, but a manager at an international bank who is based in Geneva actually asked me that question, which I thought was interesting that they were asking me, as they may well know themselves very well. But I think there is maybe a perception that Dubai is maybe a little bit taking Switzerland's shine. At the same time, I don't think it's all that zero sum. At least the people I speak to in wealth management in Switzerland it's not coming up that all of their clients are moving all their money to Dubai. I think a lot of the people that we speak to, they are the managers of wealth for very wealthy people. People with tens, hundreds of millions. Some of them are even managing the money of billionaires. And with these levels of wealth, often it seems prudent to diversify your banking relationships. So what may well be happening is you will have people saying, I want some of my wealth in Switzerland, I want some of my wealth in Dubai, I want some of my wealth in Singapore, in the same way that a lot of these people don't only have one bank. A lot of them say, I have some of my wealth in UBS, some of my wealth with JP Morgan, some of my wealth maybe with another bank, and they often like to diversify. Yeah, I mean, I've heard absolutely has really got a lot bigger as a financial center, which obviously you don't need me to tell you, and they seem to be doing very well in that sense. But I'm not getting the impression that Switzerland is sort of completely losing its mojo or anything like that. But I guess you speak to different people, maybe you have different views.
How easy is it for somebody to get in touch with you if they'd like to share something on Citywire with you?
They can just email me. Our emails are on the website. They can also send me a message on LinkedIn if they like. So yeah, we welcome tip-offs, etc. Very, very happy to have tip-offs. Please do. If you think you've got any exciting stories, we're happy to be sent it. And the worst thing we can say is we're not going to cover this. Yeah. And we will keep it very confidential.
As always, what is the question you'd have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
I mean, this is such a cop-out, but I honestly wasn't sitting there thinking, I wish he asked this question. I mean, I think you know your audience, to be honest. So I guess as a journalist, it's interesting for me to see which questions you ask that you think your audience are interested in, because maybe not really directly in response to what you said, but maybe what might be an interesting aside is, Citywire, we have quite a few different publications, right? And they all have their own audiences. And often those audiences are interested in related things, but they're not all interested in exactly the same stuff, I guess, or we wouldn't have multiple publications. It wouldn't make sense. And so one of the interesting things is that you find even between, say, my audience, which is the Swiss wealth management world, and our audience in, say, France or Germany or Italy, because we have publications in all of these countries focusing on these markets, there will be things that are really interesting to our audience that aren't as interesting to theirs. And it's not only, is this company based in Switzerland, although that is a big influence, but audiences sort of grow around what they're interested in, and it's not always the same publication by publication. So some of our publications might have more news on investment funds than we do. We do write about investment funds, but maybe the proportion in some of them might be higher, even though actually the broad profile of our publication is similar, but just in a different region. Does that make sense?
Makes sense wonderfully. Fergus, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. I hope we'll be able to do this again sometime.
Great to chat to you too, Mark.
Bye-bye.
See you.